All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Gabrielle. Welcome to the SDR Hotline. Super excited to have the one and only Galem Girmay on the show with us today. Hey, Galem, how's it going?
Hi, I'm good. That was like such a nice little intro music. I felt like I was ready to meditate. It was so nice. It calmed me down to go here.
Yes. No, I'll try like a new one out, or at least I'll try to every time. So there's
Yeah,
always something like it's very calming, very soothing, or it's a little bit upbeat. I'm like, okay, cool. Let's get into the vibe of the conversation.
love it.
All right, awesome. So today, we met up earlier this week to kind of talk about like how's the conversation going to flow today, and kind of came in. There wasn't a specific thing in mind of what we're going to talk about, but we got into the conversation of intentions and being intentional, right? And it's the new year, and everyone talks about resolutions, but there's also a conversation about intentions as well. But I'm just curious for you, like what is the importance, or even what does intentions mean for you?
Yeah, I was thinking about it this morning, like a little bit deeper. And the first thing has nothing to do with intentions, but what I think could be confused, and that I got confused. I'm not saying these are the definitions of anything, but I'm here to just share my thoughts and my experiences around the topic.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it was, you think about strategy from workplace, right? You think about how am I going to strategize my territory, my accounts. You do all that. And when I used to do that early on, I confused that with intentions.
Yeah.
Because to be able to strategize something is not the same as assuming that there's going to be an intent behind it that's like a positive intent towards where I want to go. So I might strategize and say, this is how I want the meeting to go, or these are the accounts I'm going to break into. And that's all great to have that strategy. Absolutely should be the strategy behind that. But that doesn't mean that there's the right intent behind that type of activity. So I really am thinking through like, what does intention mean to me, and how am I being mindful of my intentions in everything I do? So I don't know if that makes sense, but that's
Yeah. I guess there's an interesting point here, right? The difference between having a strategy, like in our work, right, and then having an intention. I'm just wondering if there's a way to start to differentiate or discern between the two. Like, what does that mean exactly? I would imagine that there's some folks who will say, well, like I went through my account planning session, right? Like I'm looking at my books, I'm doing all the things, right? But what's the difference between someone who's just has a strategy and then somebody who has an intention?
Yeah, and another way I thought about it too earlier in the week after our conversation was, around time management and priorities,
Mm-hmm.
because it's a constant challenge of mine to manage all the different things I have on my plate and
Yeah.
what I want to do versus what I need to do and everything in between, and what my passions are, desires, and things like that. So I was trying to think about a tactical way for me to address it, while like being mindful of what are the things and how do I, like, my calendar is color coordinated towards activities,
Yeah.
because I'm a visual person. I like to look at certain colors for certain activities. Then I also have a whiteboard in my room, like right behind me.
Yeah.
And one portion of it, which you can't see right now, I had like 3 columns of it saying like, what's the time, what's the activity, and what's the fulfillment. So that was a way for me to think about it in a different way. So I would put like, from this time to that time, I'm going to do this thing. And what's the activity? Like, it's work. And what's the fulfillment of doing that work? Then we'll go through the day like that. And I will, something I haven't done before and that I know I need to do because I suck at it, is like actually scheduling time for breaks. Nourishing my body, getting rest, which I'm still working on, but it's things like that, that I actually have to put down, and I have to block off the time because that's like me time. Something
Yeah.
I learned over the past just 2-3 months after going speaking to a professional therapist was talking about like, what are all the involvements and the things that I'm doing. And a lot of people know me from my work, from the community, Rev Genius, from my podcast, What's Your Legacy, and then other things in between that. You know, I hang on Clubhouse, I have social things that I do virtually. And so I really needed to put all that aside a little bit and think about what else is there. And like the fourth bucket for me was me, which was like at the bottom of the list.
Yeah.
So I needed to be more mindful and intentional about that and about myself and prioritizing that. So the reason why, and I know you said like, oh, that's interesting when I told you about like time, activity, fulfillment. Fulfillment, I named that something else originally. And then I stopped myself and said, is that really how I want to attach myself to what I'm doing? Like I'm looking for actual fulfillment. Otherwise I shouldn't be doing the activity. Like what fulfilling me is that fulfilling me. And
I got the shiver me timbers. I love that. I love it. Real quick question to folks who have tuned in today. If there's an intention that you have for this year, right, or even for this month, even if it's just today, would you mind just sharing what that is real quick? But no, Galem, thank you so much for walking, like, I think like walking, like just like walking all of us through how you're categorizing that. There's something I've been doing with like my team right now, looking at like a high performance planner, right? And so in each day on there, it's like, hey, what are my intentions really for the day? And even with each intention, there's kind of a category of it as well. Like I have an intention to brighten up somebody's day, and here's how I'm going to do that. I have an intention to do something that's incredibly valuable or meaningful for me, and here's what that means as well. So I think there's also a piece around, this is kind of my observation, like in being intentional in how we're approaching our work and understanding like what the work is doing for us. It's like, I think in that kind of sense, you have this really kind of balanced approach to work, something that can be sustainable and something that you can build upon that much easier versus just showing up into places and being like, all right, I'm begrudgingly going through my work day, right? Without actually understanding like what am I, like, what does this experience mean for me and what is it giving to me as well?
Yeah. The other interesting like play with intention is also attention. Because if you think about like advertisement, once you start Googling on a certain product or you're interested in something, you start seeing more of that. Like Googling obviously going to show up in different socials, etc. It's going to just show up those advertisements. But same thing when you're looking to buy a product or you're looking to get a certain haircut, like I did. I was like, okay, now I start thinking I'm going to cut my hair, and all I'm seeing around me are other women with shorter hair, and I start paying more attention to what their styles are. And that's the other thing of like, when you put your intention into something, you're starting to actually tune in and pay attention to that. That's at least in my experience, what I've been going through. That's what happens to me. Like when I start thinking about something that I want to accomplish or something that I want to feel, I start to see and surround myself more around that and with those kind of people.
100%. I think there's this, I might be jumping to something right now, but some of the conversations I'll have with the reps on my team, or just if I'm mentoring folks as well, it's I'm like trying to figure out what I want to say exactly. But I think there can be the difference between somebody who says, hey, I have a goal and here's my strategy to get there, for example, right? And then somebody who's like, listen, here's what I want to get to, and here's how I intend to get to this place. There's almost this like internalizing this new world or this new version of that person. They start to embody those characteristics. They start to embody those qualities. So it's no longer a matter of, all right, hey, I'm not the rep who's at 150% anymore. It's like, all right, I'm learning about the mindset. I'm intending to do these things. So let me go and figure out like, what does it take to actually get there? Let me start to possess that within myself and like, let me follow through. I think in doing that, you start, again, like, as you mentioned, you start to attract like the kind of experiences or the resources or whatever it is to help carry that through.
For sure. I don't know if anyone put anything in the chat. I don't see anything yet about what their intentions are for the year or for the next week or just for the day. Like, what intentions do you have of your day today? I don't know where everyone's based. Like for you, it's morning. For some, it's noon. For me, it's evening. Like we're all over the place. But I'm really curious to know what people's intentions are in their day, in their week, month, year. That would
Yeah,
really, you know,
100%. Same here. Same here.
yeah.
What have been some of the intentions that you've set for yourself, whether it was this year or even last year, right? Like you've trying to think, like I think I came across your profile probably middle of the year last year. And since then, right, you have like Rev Genius that's been blowing up. You came up with you have the podcast that you're doing. There's probably a bunch of things that you're doing that I don't know about. And I doubt that comes out of just something random, right? So it's almost like, what were the things that you intended to do, whether it's the beginning of last year, and how's that enabled you to accomplish what you've been able to accomplish thus far?
Yeah, I set the intentions to be more, I don't know what the right word is, but to be more around and to have my voice and experiences shared in hopes for other people to recognize themselves within that experience. And that's happened quite a lot. I've shared a lot about myself in posts, in videos, in webinars, just because I wish that I was around people like that growing up, or just starting in sales, or with a community or a podcast, whatever it is. And I just wish that there were more people open like that and accessible and available to have like real life conversations with.
Yeah.
Well, real life, but like virtual for now. But at some point,
Yeah.
in life. And so that was one piece of it. There's many for me. And I just want to be able to feel comfortable wherever I am, and that other people feel comfortable with me. So that to me meant like I really need to bring everything that I am to the conversations, to Zoom room, to wherever I am, and knowing that some people are going to get uncomfortable with that. And some people are going to be like, oh, I don't know if I like this or if I'm comfortable around this person. And that's okay. Like, I'm not here to judge that. I'm not here to not appreciate that. That actually is what, when I see that or when I acknowledge that, I'm like, okay, I'm on a good path. Like,
Yeah.
Continue.
Yes. 100%. 100%. I keep on using the word interesting, but I think there's a call out here, and you've mentioned this, you've alluded to this already, but I keep on hearing it, which is like it all starts off with you, right? Or if I'm saying it for myself, I'm like, all right, everything starts off with me. There can be this wanting to accomplish a certain thing, maybe because I was told that I needed to accomplish it, or like my friends are accomplishing it, and like they're having a good time, so like how can I have a good time too in that way? But instead really taking that moment to understand oneself and like what is one needing first, and then allowing that to guide, okay, like, great, if I know myself, I know what fulfills myself, right? I understand what activities are needed, just following your model, and then that's going to dictate, right, or start to inform how much time I'm spending on these things. So no, thank you for breaking that out 100%.
You know what the downside is to all of this? There's been a lot of positives for me since that started, but there's also got to the point where I'm now realizing like, oh, okay, that fourth bucket is literally the last bucket, which is me. And that's not helpful to me. I've started to really pay attention to how I'm feeling, what I'm thinking, and how that influences me and impacts me every day. And I quickly was like, okay, this just isn't it. This can't, I need to take certain actions and do certain things to not feel that way, and get the help and get resources, and be more vocal and setting the boundaries and doing all that stuff with other people and with myself too.
Yeah.
So that's the flip side of it that I think a lot of people tend to just like stay away from and just be like, no, I'm living this beautiful little Instagram filter world, but
hashtag bless. Yes.
Right.
Can I ask what made the difference, right? Like, what do you think prompted the shift for you? Like, because I think, I don't know if it takes like a certain action or a certain event or circumstance, whatever else it is, to even become aware that it's like, wow, like I've been putting myself last. It's like, I've been through that experience myself, right? But what raised that awareness for you? I'm just curious.
I don't really know exactly. I can't point to the specific moment, but I remember the feeling I had when I got back to continue to meditating again. And I was really stressed out by that. And I wasn't like comfortable with it. And I kept thinking, like my thoughts were just taking over the experience of being quiet and sitting still, that I kept thinking about everything and everybody else throughout that time, like sitting down for 20 minutes and just thinking about what I need to do for other people. That really stressed me out. And I was like, I don't think this is the experience I'm supposed to be having. Or even if it was, it's not the experience I want to have. So that was like a red flag. And I think there wasn't a one particular moment. There were multiple moments for me over time that they were red flags that I ignored and was just like, I can push. I'm a strong person. I got this.
Yeah.
And you get to a point of like, you know what? Yes, you're strong, whatever, we all are. But at some point, you have to actually prioritize yourself for the sake of long-term health. And for me, it was that part, like the mental part, but there was also a physical part for me. And I started to realize the changes physically, and that was like another cue for me.
Yeah. I'm just wondering not say for the sake of the conversation, like the SDR hotline piece, I'm just curious, like, how to tie this even to like a work example, right? So for like, I know for myself, I'll share a story, right? Maybe open it up to see if this is something that you've experienced as well. Was I noticed that like without, again, like if I was always putting myself last, I was actually going to companies where I would always come last. Like it was very much was like my environment was going to just reflect what my inner world or my inner situation, however that was programmed. So it wasn't until I started being like, oh wow, like I can't just join any and every company, right? Or I can't just do any and every job. And even as I'm doing those jobs, I can't just do it like any one way that somebody tells me, but I really do have to make like my work experience my own, like one that is fueling and that is fulfilling, right? In order for me to sustain in the career that I want and accomplish like the work objectives that I have. But like, how do you think that having set those intentions and having that level of awareness has helped you in your professional life?
I think it started when we were all able to get like a day to just disconnect from work. This was like in the early stages of COVID. And I took that day, and I'm a very literal person. And when somebody says you have a digital disconnect day, I completely disconnect. Like that's what I think that means, right? And so I did that, and I love that. And I was like, I definitely want to do more of this. This is amazing. And then I continued to do that like once a month, and then it got to every Sunday. And just doing that was super helpful because it allowed me to stay away from all of the distractions or all of the noise or all the responsibilities. And even to the point where people are like, are you not worried that something is going to happen the day when you're not connected to anyone? Yeah. I literally like turned all electronics off. I put them in the drawer behind me, and I'm ready for 24 hours. That's it. And people were really concerned, like, how can you do that? Like, are you not worried that something is going to happen to someone and they need to get in touch with you? And I said, not really. I'm not really worried about it because whatever is going to happen is going to happen. And there's nothing I can do about it. You know? And so just finding peace in that, and I think being able to compartmentalize a lot of things in my life, I think that is like another thing I've become really good at from an early age, was being able to compartmentalize feelings, actions, things around me. And that's been like super helpful. So I don't know if that answered your question or just turned this into like 500 other questions.
No, I'm well, what I love the idea of like, I'm going to ask a question.
Yeah.
What does having a digital disconnect day, like, what does that give you?
Oh, it gives me peace. Gives me peace and quiet. That's what it gives me.
Yes. Because, you know, there's times where I'm just thinking for myself, right? Because I mean, these conversations that I have, like with anyone on here, and then I think especially you, there's because I really haven't, I mean, watching from afar, we've been in some conversations together, but we haven't had this, like this depth of conversation yet. But what I can appreciate from afar is like, there is, I'm like, you see like one of the most intentional people, like it just in general, where, you know, there is, even before answering, I'm like, all right, it seems like processing, really wanting to be thoughtful, very mindful, or, you know, part of the WhatsApp group with Justin Michael, and like noting, hey, like today's like a digital disconnect day, or even if I'm like, hey, like let's meet up on Friday, and you're like, time out, like I have an intention to like, you know, like have that time for myself. So I find that it can be so hard, and even if I think about the role in sales, especially, where it's like, all right, wanting to always be available, wanting to make sure that we're always on, if there can be that, or like, what if I miss something, and that FOMO kicks in. So there's always like this being driven by fear, and I feel that as well sometimes. So like being able just to disconnect becomes incredibly challenging, to the point where I'm like, ooh, I'm like experiencing withdrawal. What's going on here? So, you know, I'm just even curious about like what helps to be able to hold yourself up to that standard of, I'm going to disconnect, I'm going to do these things. If there's any kind of tips and tricks that you would recommend for folks to be able to help them be able to accomplish that.
Yeah, it's I have to say I haven't done my digital disconnect day in a couple of weeks now. And it's something I miss, something I think about, like I need to do it. I have no reason not to do it. You know, and this is important to me because it allows me, I'm always on, you know, from the time I wake up in the morning until late at night. I'm always on, and I start to feel the challenges of that. Like I have a headache, my eyes are hurting, like I'm just not feeling good. I forget to like actually eat because it's something I need to now remind myself of with alarms and calendar notes and things like that, because I just get so in the moment with things. And I think that's a part of like being intentional, but it can also like be that downfall of you're just so in the moment that you forget that there are other important things as well, like like eating, sleeping. And so digital disconnect day, like you have to plan that in advance. That's how I got into a routine of doing it every Sunday for a long time, was that I actually put it into a must for me. This is what I have to do every Sunday. And that would mean that I would have to work a little bit maybe on Saturday some weeks in order to take Sunday completely off. So it's preparing for that day, and it allowed me to have something to look forward to because it was something for me.
Yeah.
It's those, oh, I meditate 20, 25 minutes each day, and I know that's like my own time. Nobody else can disturb me. But now it's like, oh, I get 24 full hours to myself. That's awesome. Now what am I going to do with that time? And it's nice because what happens is, for me, is that time is kind of not moving as fast anymore.
Yeah.
It's really being in the moment. Like time is just not, you're not being distracted with notifications and meetings and things that Google and YouTube will lead you to. It's just like, it's really, really refreshing and peaceful for me to do that. And then I would wake up on Monday, which I love, and just feel like, okay, I feel so good and I'm ready to start the day. And the feeling is what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah.
What includes in that day for me, but that like peaceful, restful feeling, that's what I'm getting to. And it's not like a drug. You know, a drug is something that you need to get back to all the time, and you need to take more of it to feel better. That's not what I'm trying to get to. I'm trying to get to just like that pure, neutral feeling of being at peace and knowing that I have the power to do this again next week or any day of the week that I choose to.
Yeah. That's incredibly powerful. So thank you, genuinely, thank you for sharing that. I'm over here like taking notes for myself. Like I'm gonna make a challenge for myself, and I'm gonna document the process and over time. Because I remember I went to I was living in New York. I wasn't working, and I was just going to all these like kind of oddball events to kind of, you know, not to rush through the time, but to just get out of my apartment and have something to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I also was trying to challenge myself to go to things that I'm like might not have otherwise gone to, like if I was just like at home, like or in where I'm from.
Mm-hmm.
So something unconventional, and I got introduced to whether it was like ecstatic meditation and dancing, or going to like a shaman-led meditation, or even going to this like vulnerability exchange, right? Or it's like right here, you're going to go to this vulnerability workshop, and you can just have conversations with people about like what does vulnerability mean, or asking questions about when you might have felt your most vulnerable. And I remember there was an exercise that we did in this vulnerability workshop where we just had to visualize. It's like, right, hey, like rather than attaching success to a picture, like attach it to like link it to a feeling, right? So like let's just sit in that feeling, and we just meditated while thinking. Like, so for me, I was like, oh wow, like what would it be like just to feel satisfied all the time? So I'm like, I've definitely been like, all right, I want, I'm striving for peace, inner calm. Even this past year, I think there was a moment that was really prompted by just being at home all the time. And I was like, wow, like, do I want to feel this way all the time? Like, no. And what would it take for me to feel something different? And like, what is the feeling that I'm striving to get to begin with? And for me, I was like, all right, I really just want to feel like, a sense of harmony and alignment, that like, my beliefs match my thoughts match my actions and words, right? And like, this is going to be my way of like making my life better for myself all the way around. So, like, I think it's incredibly powerful to, rather than chase after a picture of an idea, to really be mindful and conscientious about what is the inner experience that I want to have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so true. And Brooklyn said, separate out what you think is cool from what you know is beautiful. Yeah, true. You said earlier like you're gonna do like a challenge or something, and this is something I did like a year ago in January. I said to myself, I'm gonna get off of certain social media channels. And I removed myself and deactivated my Instagram account and my Facebook account, and I'd already removed like my Snapchat way before then. But I remember removing myself from Instagram and Facebook, and I did that for 6 months. It was supposed to be a 3-month thing, because what I do is like I pick something that I want to improve on or get better at each quarter, because this is just how my life is now since I started working in sales. Everything is in quarters. What can I do in a quarter? Bye, Mark. Good seeing you.
Yeah, Mark.
So what my thing was like, okay, I'm going to get off of these channels, these 2 social media channels for 3 months, which ends up being 6 months. And it was so freeing for me. And I did it because I acknowledge within myself that every time, especially when it came to Instagram, every time I get on that app, I was either pissed off with something or someone, or being resentful of something or something. And I did not like that feeling. And sitting with that feeling almost every day or multiple times a day, I was like, I can't do it. Like, this is not helping me grow at all. And I acknowledged that, and I took ownership of that. And I was like, what part of this can I take control of and change? And to me, it was like, I have to remove myself. There's nothing else I can do right now, because these people have done nothing to me. It's just, I'm the problem. Like, I can't say that it's other people. So I removed myself, and it was so freeing for 6 months. And then when I came back, it was like the new world. And I started to then take appropriate actions. Like, if these people were still bothering me somehow, not that they had done anything, but something within me, like maybe I was jealous or feeling like they have something I want and I don't have it yet. Things like that wasn't serving me well. So it was really helpful to think about it, and then removing myself from the situation, and then coming back to it when.
Yeah. I think it's just so, I think the piece here that is, I don't know, like surfacing up as something that's like really important to be able to accomplish these things is slowing down, and like in having those like self checks as well. So again, like I think there's like similar experiences that we've had, or similar kind of like experiences of growth. So when I was living in New York, I didn't have a job, and I remember being on Instagram and like scrolling through, and like I was like, look at all these people and their happy lives, and they've got everything figured out, and yeah, and I was like, and I was mad, and I was upset, and I was resentful, and and there was a certain point in time where I just recognized, I was like, all right, I'm angry, and I don't want to be, right? Or I'm resentful, and like that's not the predominant feeling that I want to experience. And I even like, I literally just had a conversation with one of my reps yesterday who's like, I'm looking at the dashboard and I'm just sitting here wondering like, what's wrong with me? You know, like I haven't figured something out. It's almost like, all right, maybe like our actions aren't actually like serving us in this, right? We can sit around and we can not say moping around and wallow and whatnot, but it's like if we were, it's almost like an addiction. It was almost like an addiction to that feeling of woe is me, I can't figure something out, or like screw them. So once there was that moment of awareness of like, what happens if I don't have anybody else to point to and be mad at and blame, for example, like those could be some of the actions or some of the activities that I'm doing. But instead, I really took ownership of my experience, and I took ownership of the role that I play in my experience. What can happen then? I mean, and that was the beginning. Yes, that was like end of 2018, beginning of 2019. And even if I think about the experience that I had, I told this to Nikki Ivy, right? I was like, I remember seeing a post that she had sometime like, you know, towards the beginning of the year last year, and being like, I was like, why do I feel jealous right now? I just remember thinking to myself, I was like, she's done absolutely nothing wrong. And I was like, I'm over here like moping, and she's out here living. Like I was like, she's doing the things, and I'm over here jealous. And I had even had to recognize for myself, I'm like, any resentment or any jealousy that I might have towards someone else for something that they're doing is probably just more so a reflection of, I don't want to say it's a lack of belief and faith, but I'm like, it's because I haven't yet put myself out there. Like I haven't even given myself the opportunity to try these things. So it's like, I really just need to believe in my ability to accomplish this to begin with. And if I believe in myself to be able to accomplish this, like, then like, let me accomplish, like, then it's not a matter of, oh, hey, like this person has it and I don't. It's more like, what do I have to learn from this person who's already doing things that I would like to do? And if I can learn from them, then I can get there faster.
Exactly. And it's interesting about resentments, and this is something that the family I was an au pair for when I first moved to the U.S. and for my first year, we've had this conversation like over some LinkedIn.
Yeah, we did. We're like, oh, au pair life? Me too.
Yeah. And anyway, the granddad of the family, I love him. He is like one of the best people I've met. And he always said to me, because we used to have like, and we still do like have really deep conversation about things. Yeah. And he asked me questions as a, 21-year-old that I was like, what? What question is that? Yeah. And what he said to me about resentments, he's like, every time you're pointing a finger at somebody else, you're pointing 3 fingers right back at you.
Yep.
That's like stayed with me now for like 11 years. And I think about that. When I think about resentments, I think about me pointing fingers at somebody else. And also knowing that I'm pointing fingers at somebody else, I'm pointing 3 right back at myself. And that's very telling. So when I get these feelings of resentments, I have to like, it's like time out, like, hold on, what's going on? Like, why are you feeling this way? What's the problem? Like, is it you? Is it them? Is it both? And why? What ownership can you take of this situation? And how can you change it to something different?
I was having a conversation with someone the other day, and what they had shared was like, sometimes just being able to ask yourself a question rather than see everything as finite, like that can be a superpower in and of itself. Mm-hmm. So like the ability to ask questions, to contemplate on, to reflect on, and to find the answers from within, rather than it being like, oh, I don't have everything figured out. Boo. Right. Very much, it's just like, what's my role in the matter? Like, what can I do, or what haven't I done yet like what's required of me to experience the life that I want to experience.
Yeah, for sure.
100%. I'm trying to think. I don't have any other like top of mind questions at the moment, but I'm wondering, is there anything that you're super excited about this year that might be going on with you?
And before we get there, I'm curious to know from you,
Yeah.
what intentions have you set for the year, and for the week, and for the day?
You know what? Last year I had a big intention, and it happened right around April or May. And I tell people, I made a commitment to my sales career, like my career in sales leadership. Like I said, I've been working in sales for 6 years now. It wasn't until year 5 where I go, I'm actually going to commit to this. And in committing to this, like, here's where I want to see myself. Here's what it means for the kind of company that I want to work at, right? Here's the kind of boss I want to have. I really just envisioned every single detail of my experience. And then I was able to plot a path to it, right? And I just thought about, like, what would it mean for me, for example, to like have a boss where I can talk about energies and chakras and just like universal world in the in metaphysical place. I was like, wow, like I could just be myself at work. The coming into this year, last year I thought, all right, I'm going to go to Gong. I'm going to have this great boss, and I'm not going to have any problems anymore. Like, there's not going to be any challenges, no conflicts. That's not real. So I think for me right now, the intention is, it's almost like being more vulnerable at work, or like advocating for myself more. So it's more like, all right, I know what kind of environment that I want to be in. I know what kind of boss I want to have. I think the piece now is like, who am I going to be in my environment? And so for me, it's very much like, I want to be the kind of person who can challenge my boss when the challenge needs to happen. I want to be the person who just like acts, like who's like, all right, I'm just going to, get things done. And I understand there's probably like the way that things are going to be done, but like, I need to be the person who really believes in myself enough, right, to speak up for myself or speak up for the things I really believe in. And also like try new things, right, that people might have like kind of overlooked. And so for me, I'm like, all right, if I can do this in a kind of a managerial role, in a leadership role, I'm like, what would that give to me? And I was like, that to me is like freedom at work. To not have to bite my tongue, right? To not have to like hold things in, to really, again, like just really be able to show up that much more. So like that to me is like what I'm envisioning for myself, and the intention that I have I have the intention to be able to experience that. And again, a lot of that is just like me being okay with like, all right, I feel this way, I see these things, and it's okay for me to express that. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you. And I look forward to like continue to just have awesome conversations with you. I'm so glad that this is the 3rd time that we're meeting this week.
Yes, it is the 3rd. That's funny. Yeah, I think we met up like once a month ago, right? We've been in meetings like, off to the side, but yeah. We're meeting a lot this month. January all the time.
I love it.
Me as well. But yeah, what are I'm curious for you, like looking, what are the next intentions for you?
It's just to continue to stay in the moment as much as possible. And it's a real challenge for me to do, because there's so many other things always happening, that being intentional about being in the moment and really doing the things I'm set out to do. And I'm the person who has a really hard time with the concept of balance. I always just do not understand it. And I'm trying to like actually understand it, what that means for me, right? Not what somebody else would say is a balance to them. So, and also like not being so hard on myself, I think is something I'm learning to do as well, and just accepting that it's not always going to be how I think it needs to be or how I wish it to be. It's just more like there, and that's okay. And everything doesn't need to happen right now. everything doesn't need to be so intense. I'm trying to like slow it down.
Ooh, you just reminded me of something. I promise you, I don't know if it was I guess it was an intention for me like, rolling into 2019 and even 2018 was like my word was surrender. Like I was like, because I had all these grand plans. I really did. That didn't happen. It didn't happen. And it's like, all right, I can look at myself or I can look at my situation and all I can see is lack, like, or an inability or something. But maybe it's much more about like letting go of control. Like, let me just like surrender to even like surrendering to the moment.
Yes.
Right. Like, here's what this moment is surfacing up for me right now. And rather than trying to like brush it under the rug, right, or run from it, like, let me just address it.
Yeah.
Right. Like, let me just embrace it and trust that it's a moment and it will pass. And the next moment will come, right? And it will pass. So
that's actually like what saves me a lot of the time is the comfort in knowing that this is not it. Like there are worse situations and there are better situations. It's okay. Like you'll be fine. You know, like
100%.
Just that like self-talk and calming myself down first, like that really helps in a lot of these different moments.
Yeah, that could be a conversation in itself of just like I call it being whether it's, you know, it's like if one identifies as a woman, it's like, right, like, you know, like mothering oneself, or I mean whatever, you can be whatever gender, right? But like mothering oneself or nurturing oneself or being that big, like if it's the bigger brother or sister to oneself, like knowing what you know now, recognizing there's been moments that you felt this way, like this exact feeling, and like what's helped you through, and what do you know now that you didn't know then that can help you that much more. So just even recognizing like within you have the ability to help yourself better than anything or anybody else. Like in that moment is so powerful.
Yes.
I feel like this is my, like, it's morning for me still, like, right? It's about to be noon, but I'm like, this is my morning meditation. Like, this is my empowerment hour. So Galem, thank you so much. Thank you so much for creating this space with me.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. I love this, and I love the topic that we get into. Love the stories that you've shared with me, and it's been a lot of fun.
100%, 100%. Any final words before we part for this week until we meet next week? Yeah.
I know we're meeting every week. I have some exciting things happening in the very near future, and yeah, I don't know how much more I should say right now, but it's just been an exciting journey. And you know, today was officially my last day at Flywire, and the way that this day went was the most beautiful one.
Oh man,
it was absolutely beautiful. We got together a bunch of my flymates. You know, once a flymate, always a flymate. There are amazing people there, and like I told them, like this was the biggest party for me that I've ever had before. And it was amazing. It really was. Like people came on and they were sharing stories, like what's your favorite story with me? And I heard all these stories I forgot about over just 2 years, or special moments. And it's interesting how I was a part of those stories, and I had one way that I would tell the story, and then somebody else tells it in their way, and you're like, oh, I didn't even think about that part of that moment, you know? And it's just like giving you a different perspective. And the way like the relationships have unfolded for me there, and the way that that was a part of my foundation getting into sales, that's like everything. That was amazing, an amazing, incredible experience for me to have. And the people that I've been a part of their lives and a part of my life, it's just been really good. So it was a bittersweet moment and day for me, like officially being the last day there, but also a really beautiful one.
I love that as you were sharing about, you know, everyone kind of sharing their experiences and what they've seen, and kind of felt and observed, I would expect nothing less, right? I think you're such a, how to put this? I was gonna say you're just like a beautiful light, honestly. Like, you know, talking to you, learning from you, seeing you, again, like from a distance, like virtually, right, but physically as well. It's almost like I'm like, what can't she do, right? And all the while,
there's a lot.
Yeah, I know. I mean,
I'll give you a list after this if that makes you feel better.
no, it's I think it's inspiring, and then also, you know, there is such and at the same time, like, you're kind of person who takes that time off. And for me, I was like, I could be a workaholic, right? Like I was like, the challenge that I have, the kind of I think the next aspiration is to be, not to say break away, but like, I'm like, all right, hey, like, what would it be like to not have so much of my time and energy like wrapped up into whether it's work or branding, right? Like, all, you know, whether it's a personal, like the professional, but also the kind of aspirational goals that I have for myself for a professional brand. I'm just like, man, like, what if I could just trust that it's going to be okay? So like, I have this challenge for myself, and I'm just so thankful that you've been able to, that I've been able to look to you as a model of that. So thank you for being you.
Thank you for being you too, Gabrielle, because you're amazing. And I always love every time I get to spend with you, and the way that you make me think and reflect about things, both in the moment, but also like afterwards. It makes me think about it. And your calmness and patience, I saw that yesterday, and I was just like, wow. I thought I was calm. I thought I was peaceful, but this lady is like, she's different.
Yeah, I'm trying. I'm like, listen, there's the compassion piece, right? I was like, there's a few things that I'm aspiring to for real. It's compassion mixed with ferocity. Like, I was like, compassion can be fierce at the same time too. So I'm like, I can be, there we go, but I can be patient with it, right? So yeah.
I love that. And thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Conversation with you today.
Thank you. Just a big old love fest. Well, yeah. Again, Galem, thank you so much for being on the SDR hotline. We'll hear about like where you're going, but I hope that you enjoy the time off. You know that I, of course, will be rooting for you, as will many other people. So thank you again for being here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have an awesome
weekend.
Yeah, you as well.
Thanks. I will.